Should the Minnesota Vikings extend Kwesi Adofo-Mensah today or this offseason or during the regular season? Has Minnesota Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, has he earned an extension from the Minnesota Vikings? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you. This take is presented by Hoagland Farm. Contact Jared at 952-491-1541 for the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed beef. This beef is sold in quarters and halves, and they have custom sample packs so you can try before you buy. Contact Jared and get 20% off.
You kidding me?
20% off for the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed beef when you mention the Minnesota Tim podcast. 952-491-1541. Okay, so I'm here to tell you if the Minnesota Vikings should extend Minnesota Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And you have to look at what he's done for the Minnesota Vikings. When in his first few drafts, he didn't perform very well. Andrew Booth Jr. bust. Lewis Seen traded back for him, could have drafted the safety out of Notre Dame that now plays for the Baltimore Ravens and is one of the top safeties in the league. That was a terrible trade back. Lewis Seen hasn't even seen the field except for a couple of special teams opportunities. And don't give me this he broke his leg garbage, because he could have returned from that. He wasn't playing before that injury. Obviously, devastating injury, but he wasn't a good player. Other guys that he's drafted haven't panned out as well. And this draft is what everyone is excited about, plus the Justin Jefferson extension. The Justin Jefferson extension first. That was not that complicated of a deal to get done. JJ was on his rookie contract, and most players, 99 times out of 100, are going to re-sign an extension with the team that originally drafted them because it's smart for the player. If you don't sign that extension, the teams can franchise tag you for multiple years, and that's the last thing players want. So to credit GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah for getting the Justin Jefferson deal done, I don't think needs to happen. I think it was going to happen regardless of who was the Minnesota Vikings general manager at the time. It could have been the worst GM in the history of sports, and they would have got that deal done. It was a must-have, must-deal opportunity for the Minnesota Vikings. But I think what everyone is excited about is this year's draft class. They drafted J.J. McCarthy, the first top 10 quarterback ever selected by the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL draft, and then he traded up to get Dallas Turner, number 17, after he pulled off a trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And those are great value picks. And I don't care how many mid-round picks the Minnesota Vikings gave up. They gave up a couple of mid-round picks, got 2 first-round picks without giving up a future first-round pick or a first-round pick of that draft. That is one of the best draft day deals I've ever seen. But just like any head coach, just like any general manager, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, his wagon is hitched to the success of J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. If those guys go on to have successful NFL careers with the Minnesota Vikings, then general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah deserves to stay. And people like to complicate these things. Oh, GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, has he pulled off the right move? Has he done the right thing? And just like in any sport, for any general manager and head coach, go down the list, their success is dependent on the success of the player. Bill Belichick, his wagon was hitched to the greatest quarterback success ever in Tom Brady. Okay? He got fired after Tom Brady. He got fired before Tom Brady. He was successful because of Tom Brady. Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. He tried to coach the Knicks at the end of his career. Didn't go too well. Why? Because they didn't have a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan on their roster. You look at any coach, any general manager, Greg Popovich can't win a game now. Won 5 titles with the San Antonio Spurs because he had Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. People like to complicate these things and say, oh, Popovich is just such a great coach, and Phil Jackson is just such a great. These guys are the greatest coaches of all time. I mean, there is something to be said about enhancing the great players' abilities and taking it to another level. So I'll credit them there. But you got to look at what's in front of them. It's not like they're taking crap off the street and taking it to championships. They were gifted the greatest players in their profession on their team. And once those great players weren't there anymore, they just became any average or below average coach in the NBA. Just facts. So Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, did he pull off the right move here? Did he pull off is he making the right decision with this mid-round pick? Is he going to bring in the right free agent? Is Van Winkle or Greenard or the linebacker from Minnesota, are these guys going to have great years? I hope so. But Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's success is going to be dependent on how J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner perform in the NFL. That's the truth. The future of his tenure with the Minnesota Vikings depends on it. If those two guys are great players, then Kwesi Adofo-Mensah will be looked at as one of the greatest GMs in Minnesota Vikings history. If those guys are busts, then people are going to look at Kwesi as a terrible GM who failed to draft Lewis Cine, who failed to draft Andrew Booth Jr., who failed at drafting J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. That's just the truth of the situation. Is he a great GM? We don't know yet. I'm not going to call him a great GM because he's re-signed one of the greatest wide receivers in the history of the NFL through his first 5 or 6 seasons in the NFL. Any general manager would have done that. My heavens. It's ridiculous. But will J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner be great players? It all comes down to that. Thank you for watching this episode. Please hit that subscribe button right there. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please rate, review, and follow this podcast wherever you are listening to this podcast. Everyone, take care, and thank you for making this podcast a part of your day. Ho, ho, ho.